Breaking cruise news, another cruise line leaves the U.S. for the summer. Royal, they cancel. No shocker, I'll give you the details on that. And is big media getting ready to jump into the fight, or have they already jumped into the fight for the restart of cruising in the U.S.? Promising stuff. Let's talk about it. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Lido Loca. I'm your host, Tony, here with the latest cruise news updates. We're really going to talk about four things today. I'll give you the royal cancellation information. I'll tell you about the cruise line that just announced today that they would be leaving the U.S. for more cruise-friendly waters. I do want to say something about the CDC. I didn't tease that in the beginning, but there will be a little CDC talk. And then finally, big media. I think they're fighting for U.S. cruises in a positive way. Here we go. First, yes, Royal Caribbean finally making a decision on U.S. cruises in June. They're not going to do it. They join Norwegian Cruise Line, Carnival Cruise Line, canceling their June U.S. sailings. But that doesn't mean that Royal Caribbean not sailing in June. They got a lot of stuff going on around the world. So again, it's just going to be the U.S. cruise market left in the lurch for June. No cruises for Royal Caribbean. I don't think that surprised anybody, but that's the first story. Royal Caribbean cancels June. Story number two, Virgin Voyages. We just covered it yesterday. They canceled cruises for July and August, June, July, and August, saying that they would not cruise in the U.S. until September. And some of us said, well, why so many months? Well, they got somewhere else to go. How about that? We thought that the Virgin Voyages first cruise would be here out of Florida this year in the United States. Nope. They will be joining several other cruise lines that will be cruising around the UK, doing staycation 3 and 4 day cruises to nowhere starting in August. Just makes sense. That cruise ship's rocking and rolling, ready to go, and no place to sail from. Now they have a place to sail from. Virgin Voyages making the trip across the ocean to the UK to start doing business. Is anybody paying attention to how many companies are going to be sailing not in the US this summer? All right, so let's talk about the CDC. Before we do that, let me give you the quick invite to be a part of this virtual cruising community. Join the locafam. All you got to do is subscribe with the notification bell on. It doesn't cost anything. The big benefit for you is that you get notified when all of this new cruise news comes out. My side of the bargain is I'll give you the cruise news, and if you want that as soon as possible, be a subscriber. Subscribe with the notification bell. Thank you in advance. All right. My love-hate relationship with the CDC. Let me give you some context. Back in 2014, I was participating in a church in Charlotte, North Carolina. We used to go to these little home meetings, and one of the leaders of the home meetings worked for an organization that sent missionaries over to Africa. In 2014, there was an Ebola outbreak in Africa, and one of the missionaries there contracted Ebola. And Ebola, for the most part, is a very deadly disease, and so if you get Ebola, that's bad news. Now, the CDC sprung into action, repatriated this doctor back to the U.S., set him up in quarantine, and worked tirelessly to help this missionary, this doctor, recover from Ebola. So that's one of my foundational interactions with the CDC. We would meet weekly with this leader of this home church, and we would talk about these things. And so I have a very positive foundation for the CDC. So in my mind, I'm starting from the place where CDC is all about taking care of disease, taking care of people, keeping people safe, and I do continue to believe that. Now, at the same time, they are acting in a capacity where they have control over a whole industry, the cruise industry, and what I've seen in that interaction, the other set of context is I've worked many years of my life in leadership roles, and I am a student of leadership. I have a master's of strategic leadership from the University of Charleston, West Virginia, and so I've spent a lot of time studying leadership, looking at leadership, and looking at interaction between leaders. There's the other piece of context. So what troubles me right now with the CDC is that you have the cruise industry that's saying we have demonstrated that we can cruise safely, and we would like you to come to the table and have a conversation around how we are doing it and look at what we've accomplished so far and see if we can alter what you're saying that we should do. And again, I'm not behind the scenes. I don't know what the backroom talks are, but seemingly it does not seem like that conversation is forthcoming. Some conversation around what the cruise industry has accomplished since the cruise shutdown. Seemingly, what it seems like in the guidance that was put forth by the CDC is a strong reliance on what happened on, say, like the Diamond Princess. Diamond Princess is horrible. That can never happen again. But so much has been learned. So much has been advanced since then. And I think it's unfair to the cruise industry to continue to hold Diamond Princess up as the example, because this happened at the very beginning of the coronavirus pandemic. And so to hold any organization to what they thought, what they knew, how they acted at the beginning of the pandemic compared to what they're doing now seems to me very unreasonable and unfair. And you might say, well, Tony, life is unfair, but the rhetoric from the CDC has constantly said that they are empathetic to the plight of the cruise industry to get restarted, that they understand the economic impact, that they understand the reason that the cruising needs to get started from the industry's perspective. And so if that is your position, that you are empathetic, that you understand, that you are acting in a fair way, then there should be some fair play. I didn't mean to rhyme it, but that's my thought process. So let me submit this last idea, and then we'll move forward into talking about big media advocating for the cruise business. The health department, the National Health Department in the UK have looked at the processes and the protocols of the cruise industry. They've looked at their plan for how they plan to sail safely, and they've approved that plan. Of course, in Singapore, the health organization, the government evaluated what the cruise industry proposed, and they approved that plan. In Israel, the health organization in Israel looked at those plans. They approved it. In Italy, they looked at the health department, the National Health Organization looked at the plans, the proposals of the cruise industry and approved it. In Greece, the government, the health organizations there looked at the plans that the cruise industry has put forth, looked at the evidence that they have so far about self-sailing, and they have approved it. And look, I don't say all that without knowledge that the circumstances are different all over the world. Certainly Singapore has handled the virus much better than the United States, but at the same time, all of these health organizations have looked at what the cruise lines are proposing, and they have said yes. These health organizations have looked at the data provided, looked at the plans provided, and had some sort of conversation. And certainly over the last couple weeks, I just don't get that same sense that that kind of conversation is happening between the cruise industry and U.S. health officials. Other people put forth the idea that the cruise industry does not count because they are not incorporated in the United States. The cruise business is not incorporated in Israel. It's not incorporated in the UK. It's not incorporated in Singapore. It's not incorporated in Greece or Italy. And for some reason, they're able to do their business in other countries other than the United States. It just begs the question, does the CDC know something that these other countries do not know, their health organizations, or are they just not coming to the table? That's the thing that's challenging to me. I do believe in the mission and the goals of the CDC to keep people safe, but at the same time, with much power comes much responsibility. And given the power to shut down a whole industry that has a financial impact on American workers, I think they should do a little more. That's just my opinion. Now, finally, let's talk about big media talking up the cruise business. On the live show the other night with Don, we showed the clip from Jim Cramer on CNBC. I believe that's the thing. He was very positive when talking to Frank Del Rio about the record of cruising during the pandemic and how cruising potentially more safe than any other travel activity given the health and safety protocols, given the vaccine requirement. And Jim Cramer, very positive. And now we got another story just popping off this morning, a segment on CBS this morning. That's almost as big a media as you can get, talking to CEO Richard Fain from Royal Caribbean, and also talking to Morgan O'Brien, one of our peers here in the cruise commentary, cruise vlogging space. I was so proud to see Morgan included, one of the few Americans that's actually cruised during the pandemic out of Germany. I'm going to pull up the clip. We'll talk about it a little bit and pay close attention to the vibe of this clip. I feel like it is very positive positive toward cruising. They do call out the Diamond Princess. Cruising is going to have trouble getting away from the Diamond Princess, but we will focus on a few things, and at the end, wait till you see how this clip ends. It's really telling. All right, let's jump into the clip a bit.
We are learning what cruise ships could be like when they set sail again in American waters. Passenger ships have not been allowed to sail in this country for more than a year because of, COVID. That's wiped out more than 100,000 American jobs. This week, the CDC said that cruises could potentially return this summer with some restrictions. First on CBS this morning, Errol Barnett spoke to the CEO of Royal Caribbean about the company's plans to restart operations.
We want to get ourselves going everywhere.
In his first sit-down interview since the pandemic began, Royal Caribbean CEO...
All right, so that's big right there. So there has been a lot of motion in the last 2 weeks. Think about that. The last 2 to 3 weeks, there is a lot of noise coming out of the cruise lines, coming out of CLIA, really coming out of politicians that are favorable to cruising. There's really a lot of noise, really a lot of chatter saying, look, these guidelines are a little onerous. You got to let us cruise. And now you've got Richard Fain, who's been one of the premier leaders, one of the people leading the way in this conversation for the last year, now making an appearance on what I consider big media.
CEO Richard Fain tells CBS News he's pushing to set sail again, now that there's more information about how to stop the spread of COVID.
We would like to work closely with the CDC to make sure that we do that in a safe and healthy way.
No cruise ship with passengers has left a U.S. port in over a year. Last February, a major COVID outbreak on board the Diamond Princess, run by a separate cruise company, left passengers stuck at sea for nearly a month. Soon after, there was another outbreak on board the Grand Princess. In all, more than 800 were infected with COVID and more than a dozen people died.
So there you go. Diamond Princess continues to be used as the thing that makes cruising bad. 800 infected, more than a dozen died. Those are horrible numbers. But compared to how much COVID came into the United States through the airlines, it's the argument, I don't think it holds up. If you're going to hold the 800 cases that happened on cruise ships early in the pandemic as somehow making cruise ships the cause of COVID in the United States, it's a very weak argument that is quickly destroyed by any look at the evidence. And yeah, I mean, Diamond Princess, again, watch the last cruise. I'm going to keep beating that drum. It was horrible. Nobody wants to be stuck on a cruise ship, quarantined like that. We learned lessons from Diamond Princess that the longer you stay where the infection is, you will get infected. This was the big lesson learned, and this is not something that will be repeated. The cruise ships have said repeatedly in their new health protocols, this is not the path forward to just quarantine people on cruise ships. And so, but yeah, right there in the beginning, before it gets good for cruising, just a reminder about the Diamond Princess, something that will not soon be forgot, and something that I feel like is holding cruising back.
Mid-March, the CDC issued a no-sail order stopping all cruises from the U.S.
I've done 4 cruises since.
Yes, Morgan O'Brien. Look, Morgan has been in this YouTube game making cruise content for all of us for many years, and so much love and respect for Morgan. We actually did an interview together here on this channel where we had this conversation. What is it like to cruise now? Because as they point out in this article, Morgan has been cruising during the pandemic in Germany. And so I will leave a link above to that conversation with Morgan. I'll probably put that in the first comment because it's worth watching, because so many of us have that question. What is it like to cruise right now? And I'm excited to see Morgan here. Let's see what he has to say.
COVID appeared, and I will be doing another one very soon.
But cruises have resumed elsewhere. Morgan O'Brien is an American travel video blogger living in Germany.
On board the ship, we're required to wear a surgical mask at any time we're moving around the ship.
In videos like these, he's pushing the CDC to establish protocols cruise ships outside the U.S. are already using.
People are getting temperature checks every day. We have to be tested 72 hours before the cruise leaves, and of course, it has to be a negative PCR.
Let me just say I'm super jealous that Morgan got to do all this cruising. I'm excited, I'm happy, I'm able to celebrate it, but part of me is like, I wish that was me.
our test.
Royal Caribbean has tested those systems abroad, and Fain says with encouraging results.
The Royal Caribbean Group alone has carried over 100,000 guests, and of that, we've only had 10 cases.
Royal Caribbean Group alone has carried over 100,000 guests and have only had 10 cases. Royal Caribbean alone has carried over 100,000 guests and only 10 cases. Is that just lucky, or is that the protocols at work? Please, if you're out there hating on cruising, how do you dismiss that?
Would like to be treated in a very similar way to the airlines and other forms of transportation.
Last week, the CDC unveiled technical steps for cruise operators, including trial voyages with volunteers and updating the definition of COVID-like illness for reporting. But they have not set a specific return date. Cruise lines are also choosing to install better filtration systems to clean the air. Here in the next few months, should they be able to set sail, what will be different?
All the cruise lines are working towards the best protocols. That includes new ways of circulating air, new filtration. It includes cleanliness, ways to clean areas. It includes testing.
The CDC also recommends.
Now, I don't know if it got cut out, but to me, the most important question is how will passengers be treated in the event of a breakout? Now, certainly the idea is that if you cruise with a vaccinated passenger base, crew base, or with all these protocols, that the breakout will be minimum. Remember, those 100,000 cruises that we're talking about, the majority of those 100,000 passengers not vaccinated. So the health and safety protocols, the bubble in place prior to vaccination, keeping the case count low. You add vaccination on top of that, it should be to nil. But I really wish they would have covered what happens in case of the cases. What are some of those protocols? Because those will affect cruising. Maybe it was covered, but I talked to Morgan. He said that they interviewed him for 30 minutes, and you see how much footage of Morgan is in there. So I don't know if they covered this what happens question, but it doesn't seem like it's in this article. I wish that would have been something they would have included.
Passengers and crew get vaccines before boarding, but some companies are taking it further. Royal Caribbean and Norwegian say they will require all passengers and crew to be inoculated.
Nobody can guarantee.
This is interesting. So I don't know if that, this is the first time I've heard somebody say that Royal Caribbean will require U.S. passengers to be vaccinated. I've got some messages from people, but I've never seen anything official from the company. I don't know if this means that it's official. That's certainly true for the cruises that Royal is having in Israel, out of Nassau, in other places. But did this mean that there will be, they're talking about the restart of U.S. cruising. Is this suggesting that Royal has made a decision on the vaccine mandate? Again, I don't see how you can start cruising without a vaccine mandate. That's still going to be debated, argued out, that kind of thing. But Norwegian already said they're going to do it. Virgin Voyages, who is going to go to the UK, they would have done it out of the US. And so this could be the writing on the wall for Royal.
Anybody is safe from COVID anywhere in America or anywhere else. Actually, the irony is, if you go on a ship, you're going to reduce your risk of coming down with the virus.
Now, Fain makes that assertion by saying that they will test passengers before, during, and after trips. They will also be able to contact trace with technology they describe as a tracelet. Take a look. It's a wearable tracking device. It has RFID technology so that if there is a positive case on board, they can isolate that individual and let you know if you've come anywhere near them within 6 feet. Really impressive stuff. Now, the vessel you see behind me, this huge thing, can carry up to 4,500 people. The cruise industry wants to set sail again here in the U.S. by July, but of course the CDC has not permitted that just yet. And Tony, I know you are a fan of these huge vessels. You're among 15 million Americans who would have gone on a cruise in this past year.
Tony's a big cruise fan. I like hearing that. This is where it really gets good. To me, this is really, again, if I think of the Jim Cramer conversation with Frank Del Rio earlier in the week, very positive. I think this is fair reporting here, pointing out some of the challenges that the cruise industry has, also pointing out that they've made great strides and allowing Richard Fain to advocate for the safety protocols that they put forth. And what I like about this is now you've just got the news people here going to give their opinion on it. First, let's go to Cruise Fan Tony.
and instead that number has been 0.
Ariel, I'm glad you mentioned that. I was going to say that boat looks pretty inviting to me.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Look, I'm rooting for the cruise industry,
Me
not only
too.
because 100,000 people work in it, but
Yeah.
because there is nothing like being out on the open ocean and not seeing land. It really alters your view of the whole planet.
No, and I've been on a couple of cruises, Holland America and Royal Caribbean, to name a couple. That I think it's great for families because it's something for all ages. You're all in one area. You can come and go as you please. So I think Mr. Fain makes a really good point of the 100,000 people.
100,000 passengers, only 10 cases.
Yeah, I think that is very
good news. I hope my wife
with
is
you,
watching.
Tony.
All right, so that's super encouraging to me. This is another example of big media. It does seem like it's a process, right? Another avenue to put pressure on the CDC. Again, this isn't hard pressure, but it's elevating the conversation into more of the general population, saying there's a business out there that, while everything else is experiencing recovery here in the United States, there are American workers that are still being, stymied, still being held down when it comes to doing their work because this industry, the cruise industry, is not able to restart. At the end of the day, passenger and crew and place visited health is the most important thing. The cruise industry saying that they've come up with ways that they can do that and keep everybody safe, and they're just looking for the opportunity for the CDC to consider that in a serious fashion. I do believe that they owe them that. Boom, that's your cruise news. What do you think about all this? Big media helping out cruising, Royal cancels, Virgin's going somewhere else, and all the other health places that have said yes to cruising. Why is the U.S. the holdout? Let's have that conversation in the comments. Thank you so much for watching the show. Please hit that like button. Check out this video YouTube recommends. I'm Tony for Lido Loca, and until the next time, we'll see you on the Lido. Bye.